Imagine you're sitting in a command bunker just miles from Putin's northern flank, watching the world's quietest army come alive. The snow-filled forests tremble with mobilizing reservists, precision missiles hum in the cold air, and the man across the border realizes, this isn't a gentle warning, it's a trap. Welcome to the frontier of fear, the 1,300-kilometer border between Finland and Russia, where Finland's entire defense doctrine is turned into a deterrent machine. And for Putin, it's not just another neighbor, it's a nightmare. Right from the start, Finland doesn't posture. It prepares. It doesn't need parades, dramatic speeches, or endless nuclear monologues. Its message is simple. If you come, you pay. And when you prepare like this, you don't need to shout to be scary. This video is for news, analysis, and educational purposes only. No glorification of war, no calls for violence, just a breakdown of why one small, calm country has built one of the most effective deterrent systems on Russia's border. Let's get into what makes Finland different. Because while many countries can buy tanks or missiles, very few build their entire society around defense readiness. In Finland, total defense isn't branding, it's policy, planning, and mindset. It means that in a serious crisis, the entire society, government, businesses, infrastructure, media, citizens is expected to support national defense. That includes continuity of services, secure logistics, resilient communications, and population protection. This framework is laid out and reinforced by Finnish authorities as a core principle of national security. Here's how it plays out at the human level. Every fit male citizen is liable for military service, and women can volunteer. After completing their conscription, they move into the reserves. According to the Finnish Defense Forces, the wartime strength is about 280,000 soldiers, backed by a reserve of roughly 900,000 citizens. Finland isn't stopping there. According to reporting from Reuters, the government has proposed raising the upper age limit for reservists from 60 to 65, potentially adding 125,000 more and bringing the pool toward 1 million by 2031. This is not theoretical. This is on paper, in policy, being implemented. So what does that mean for a Russian campaign planner? It means that if an attack begins, Finland is not improvising defense on the fly. It has a legal framework, a trained manpower pool, pre-planned roles, mobilization systems, and a culture where defense is not shocking, it's expected. The country goes from normal life to wartime footing with far less friction than states that rely only on small professional armies. No panicked scrambling. No, we'll figure it out after the first week. The machine is primed, and that is a quiet, cold-blooded nightmare for anyone thinking of a quick operation across the border. Now let's talk punch, not just people, but what they bring to the fight. Finland's strength is not in huge standing numbers, but in a high-capability, well-integrated force that can scale. Public sources and defense analyses consistently describe a wartime strength around 280,000 personnel with a deep, trained reserve. On land, Finland fields modern main battle tanks, including Leopard 2 variants, alongside a significant number of infantry fighting vehicles and armored personnel carriers. Exact operational counts shift over time, but open sources and official equipment pages reflect a serious armored component, not a token force. Artillery is where things get especially unpleasant for an invader. Finland has long invested heavily in tube artillery, rocket artillery, and heavy mortars. International assessments frequently highlight Finland as one of the most artillery-strong countries in Europe relative to its size, with artillery seen as a cornerstone of its land defense doctrine. Add in modern anti-tank systems such as NLAW and other guided weapons, plus layered air defenses including NASAMS medium-range systems confirmed in Finnish equipment listings, and the picture becomes clear. Any advancing formation is walking into overlapping bubbles of fire. This isn't just we have tanks too. It's a deliberately constructed kill chain. Detect, track, fix, hit, repeat. If you cross into Finland, you aren't just facing infantry in the snow. You're facing a country that decided, our forests will shoot back. Now shift from metal to map. Finland is not a place designed for a fast, cinematic armored thrust. You're looking at dense forests, swampy ground, countless lakes, narrow roads, long distances, brutal winters, and limited good avenues of approach. Finland's military strategy explicitly leans on this. The idea, repeated in Finnish doctrine summaries and open source analyses, is territorial defense using large land areas to delay and wear down a stronger attacker instead of trying to hold a perfect line at the frontier. In practice, that means every lake can be a barrier. Every forest line can host anti-tank teams. Every road can be mined, blocked, watched. Every shortcut can be a funnel with artillery zeroed in. The The easy-looking route on the map becomes the high-casualty route in reality. This is not about Finland thinking it will outnumber Russia. It's about understanding terrain better and weaponizing time, distance, and fatigue. The longer an invasion drags on, the more exposed logistics become, the more vulnerable command nodes are, the more an invader bleeds. Occupation isn't just hard, it's engineered to be a bad idea. Now widen the canvas. Finland formally joined NATO on April 4th, 2023. That single decision transformed its 1,300+ kilometer border with Russia into NATO's longest direct land frontier with the Russian Federation. From Moscow's perspective, this is not a minor cartographic update. It means a state that already had a strong national defense now sits inside an alliance with shared planning, shared intelligence, and potential reinforcement. An attack against Finland is no longer just a local incident. On paper, it triggers Article 5 considerations from the entire alliance. We're not saying NATO is looking for that fight. Every official line emphasizes deterrence and defense, not aggression. But deterrence works because the cost of aggression becomes unpredictable and potentially enormous. And that is exactly the new geometry Finland brings to the table. Russia now has to factor in, not just can we handle Finland, but can we handle Finland plus whoever else shows up? Once that question is on the table, a lot of risky scenarios start looking stupid very quickly. Time for the tech layer. In modern war, you don't win just by owning hardware. You win by connecting it, seeing first, striking accurately, denying the enemy surprise. Finland is moving sharply in that direction. According to official announcements, Finland has selected 64 F-35A Lightning II fighters to replace its aging FA-18 fleet, with deliveries expected in the second half of this decade. These jets will form the backbone of its future air power with long-range sensors, stealth, and full NATO interoperability. On air and missile defense, Finland has acquired the David Sling system from Israel in a landmark deal, its first export customer adding a high-altitude, long-range layer designed to intercept advanced threats. They already operate NASAM's medium-range systems and integrate multiple sensors and effectors into a shared situational picture. Finnish sources emphasize this common operating picture approach, allowing resources to be allocated where they're needed most rather than used blindly. When you combine networked radars, modern fighters, layered ground-based air defense, and strong artillery, the old Soviet-style approach of overwhelm with mass becomes much harder to pull off without unacceptable losses. On drones, electronic warfare, and cyber, open-source details are naturally limited, but based on Finland's total defense concept and recent emphasis on resilience and hybrid threats, it is reasonable to say Finland takes cyber and information defense seriously. That's my informed interpretation, not a classified fact drop. The key takeaway: Finland is not a blind forest. It's wiring the forest with sensors, and if you can't hide, you can't maneuver the way you want. Zoom out again, this time to the whole Nordic map. Finland, Sweden, and Norway together form NATO's northern shield. With Sweden also in NATO, this creates a continuous corridor from the Baltic Sea to the Arctic. Analysts point out that this transforms reinforcement routes, air corridors, and naval operations in the high north. If this space is coordinated effectively, it can complicate Russian movements from bases like Murmansk and restrict freedom of action in both the Baltic and Arctic theaters. This is a synthesis of multiple strategic commentaries, not a single quoted doctrine. For Putin, Finland is not just another NATO flag. It is potentially a staging area, a sensor network, a land bridge tying together Baltic and Arctic defense. My opinion, clearly labeled, from a Russian strategic lens, a Finland fully integrated into allied logistics and surveillance networks looks less like a passive neighbor and more like a very solid door that can swing shut on northern military routes if things go bad. That's not something you poke lightly. Let's talk about how Finland signals that all of this is not theoretical. According to recent Reuters reporting, Finland has been reinforcing its eastern frontier since joining NATO, building sections of a border fence with modern surveillance, stockpiling certain defensive capabilities, and tightening rules on Russian property purchases and drone operations near sensitive areas. None of this is marketed as aggression. Official messaging frames it as deterrence and control, keeping the border stable, predictable, and hard to exploit. The signal to Moscow is quiet but clear. We are closing loopholes. You will not get easy pressure points here. When a country that calm starts systematically removing vulnerabilities, you pay attention. Hardware can be bought. Culture has to be lived. Finland has something it often describes with one word: sisu. Roughly, it means resilience, endurance, the refusal to fold when everything sucks. According to surveys and long-standing policy documents, support for national defense and conscription is consistently high among Finns, and the defense model is built on the idea that citizens themselves are central to deterrence. That means in a real crisis, an aggressor is not just facing professional soldiers, but a population that has basic training, a clear idea of their role, a mental framework where defense is normal, not shocking. This doesn't mean every civilian is a combatant. International law and rules of war still apply, and Finland presents its doctrine as defensive. But from a planning perspective, it means occupation, coercion, and intimidation are far harder to pull off. If your plan relies on people giving up quickly, Finland is the wrong test case. So let's stack it all. First, cost. Any serious move against Finland guarantees high, possibly unsustainable costs. You are attacking a country optimized to bleed you slowly. Second, manpower and mobilization. A reserve approaching 1 million by the next decade if current plans advance, with 280,000 deployable in wartime, is a huge pool for a nation of under 6 million people. That's not symbolic. Third, precision and networks. With F-35s coming in, David's Sling on the way, NASAMS integrated, and a focus on shared situational awareness, the days of assuming you can move forces near that border without being seen are over. Fourth, terrain. Dense, cold, brutal terrain that favors defenders with artillery. You're not outrunning that, you're driving into it. Fifth, alliance geometry. Any attack risks collision with NATO, not just Finland. That multiplies uncertainty and potential escalation in a way that rational planners should hate. Individually, each factor is a problem. Together, they are a deterrent architecture. For Putin, Finland is not just a neighbor that went west, it is a hardened northern wall with depth, discipline, and friends. And that's exactly why he should fear it. Here's the kicker. Finland doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need hour-long tirades on TV or missile parades every weekend. What it does is boring, methodical, and brutally effective. Train, plan, integrate, maintain. It hardens infrastructure. It modernizes air defenses. It builds legal and logistical frameworks. It deepens cooperation with allies. It keeps public support on board. In war and strategy, the side that quietly does the work often ends up scariest, because when a crisis comes, there is no act. It just switches on. So, if you're sitting in the Kremlin, staring at that long white tree line to the northwest, maybe you tell yourself it's just forests and lakes, but the forest knows. The roads know. The logistics hubs know. The artillery crews, the conscripts, the reservists, the radar operators, they all know their role. And they're ready long before you cross. In war, the most dangerous opponent is not always the loudest one. It's the one that says nothing, prepares relentlessly, and lets you be the one to make the first and worst mistake. Finland is that opponent. If you found this breakdown useful, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts below. Would you roll the dice on a country whose winter you don't understand, whose forests you don't control, and whose mobilization numbers you really don't want to test? See you in the next one.